Welcome to the NGConnects Podcast, where national gypsum team members and industry leaders share insights and advice to solve construction and design challenges. We obsess over the details to help you build better. Today we're talking about when to invest in high-performance gypsum board to cut risks in commercial projects. And to guide us through this, we have Jessica Janosko, who is the Southeast Area Sales Manager for National Gypsum. When we think about constructing commercial buildings, we often think about the steel frame, the glass facade, or the foundation. But what about what's inside the walls? Turns out making the right choice about something as common as gypsum board can be the difference between a successful project and one that is plagued by delays, budget overruns, and long-term issues. Jessica, welcome to the show. We've worked together for a long, long time. I know how busy you are, and I just more than anything appreciate you taking the time out of your busy schedule. Joining me here today, we're going to have a great conversation. And again, just want to say thanks for your time.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
So let's get into the heart of our conversation. When we start talking about constructing a project, we got a lot of stakeholders. You got building owners, you got contractors, you got design professionals. What are some of the things that those three stakeholders are really looking at as far as from a design standpoint? What are they looking to achieve?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, you have three parties. You've got your owner, who's got really just the total investment, long-term project and how it's going to function and how people are going to live in there, right? And then you have the architect who carries that functionality and meets it with just how the aesthetics look. So, how the project is going to look. So functionality, how it looks. And then you've got the builder, the contractor, right? That's going to make all of this happen. So the contractor adds a little bit different perspective from the sense of the functionality, the budget, and now a timing aspect to it. So,
well, there's nobody that knows that better than you and your team. I know you don't talk much with building owners, but you certainly talk a lot with architects. You talk a lot about this stuff with contractors. Let's get into this first topic about value engineering. I know that conversation comes up a lot. I know it comes up a lot on the contractor side. They're always looking for ways to save money. Value engineering is one of those ways or one of those approaches that contractors, maybe architects at times, look at as far as trying to get that budget tightened up a little bit. What is value engineering and what significance does it play in all of this?
Yeah, we run into this all the time, Chris. So really value engineering comes from the three different perspectives from the owner, the architect, and the contractor, right? But really this is the place where budget meets functionality. Mm-hmm. And really what we find is from a timing perspective, you've got one bucket where the contractor's got a timing, a schedule, a function, and then sometimes that doesn't really align with what the owner and the budget has.
Does.
No, it definitely doesn't. So enter value engineering. And so what we run into a lot of times is a lot of the projects, they opt for a lesser, a more budget-friendly
mm-hmm.
material, right? And unfortunately, there's a lot of risks that come with that.
Sure.
So, yeah. A lot of people don't think about, the after the fact, once you make these decisions, maybe a little bit budget friendly, but really it could be a long-term risk.
What are some of those risks? Maybe break some of those risks down. What are some of the things that you see from a risk standpoint?
So, Chris, there's really four risks that I think of when you talk about value engineering, and it's really wear and tear, weather, water, rain damage, diminished resilience when you think about like mold, mildew, moisture in the air. And then really the final thing is acoustics, so noise, privacy.
So let's maybe drill in a little bit into some of those specific risks. I think a lot of folks just think a wall is a wall, and it's not. There's performance characteristics and attributes with some of the gypsum board products that are out there that go into these walls. Maybe talk a little bit about, let's focus on the wear and tear part of that first, these high traffic areas, some of the products that are available and some of the risks that these products address.
Yeah. So really, I mean, coming from Charlotte, right? National Gypsum's based in Charlotte. I get to handle lovely Charlotte. There's a lot of commercial projects going on,
Yes.
and
Everywhere we go is commercial projects.
everywhere.
Yeah.
So there's two products that really come to mind when it comes to wear and tear. You've got high abuse and then impact resistant board. So we make our XP high abuse board and our high impact board, all mold and mildew resistance, but those really sometimes from the architect level and even through the contractor level are very much interchanged. And sometimes they're almost similar in some people's mind, and that's really not the case.
There's really a difference between those two.
Yeah.
Again, performance characteristics. There's a different price point between those two, and I know you've seen this a lot. I've seen this a lot. A lot of times, these architects, they'll go specify, or in the specification, they'll state abuse/impact gypsum board, and they may not be aware of those different performance attributes. And so it's important to note that they're priced differently, they perform differently, and so that's just really important to note. Maybe where would you see maybe a high impact gypsum board product versus a high abuse gypsum board product? Where some of the applications, some of the differences one might see those products?
Yeah. So high abuse, when you think about high abuse, our board is a little bit denser board and the paper's thicker.
Mhm.
So really you think about schools, maybe libraries, where there's going to be a lot of scuffs and scrapes and
Those hallways
with the
backpacks.
backpack.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So really what we find is that's probably the most perfect place for abuse board, just because it's got a little bit heavier paper. So it's resistant to some of those scrapes and bumps and scratches that may be, that they may be privy to. And then really the high impact board is, your premium board, right? It's got the denser core. So we insert a mesh to make sure that nothing's penetrating through the wall.
Yep.
And that's really, when you think about hospitals and heavy corridors, possible like stairways where a lot of things are happening, heavy material, heavy equipment, that's probably the best place for high impact.
I know you're from Baltimore, recently relocated to Charlotte. I came from Houston, now into Charlotte. Weather and the change of seasons is certainly something we got to take into consideration. I see these multifamily projects that are going on, these townhome projects that are going on. I see the beautiful purple shaft liner that's coming up out of those structures that separates the individual units, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that certainly plays into this, right? And there's different types of liner that go into these projects, correct?
Absolutely. So we have, when you think about value engineering, there's two options when it comes to materials that you can use in the elements. We have our shaft wall liner. That's a very popular item. And sometimes we have a paper faced, mold and mildew resistant, but then we have a really glass mat material or EXP shaft wall liner.
Mm-hmm.
And what we find in these, whether we were talking about weather elements and water exposure and all that stuff, when you think about value engineering, sometimes that gets, people don't really think about that, right?
Yeah.
Oh, it's the middle of April. It's going to rain. And we're going to have hurricane season coming up around the corner, or things like that. So sometimes that gets lost in the wash a little bit in the sense that, when you use glass, you have that extended weather exposure and you don't have to worry about if there's a rainstorm.
So Jessica, some of the conversations that you have with contractors, this value engineering topic, do you hear that a lot? Contractors value engineering different products, maybe going to an inferior product than what's actually specified due to that price component?
We do. When you think about from a price point perspective, your glass material is a little bit more expensive. So when you think about value engineering, and one of the things that people, maybe in an elevator shaft, they're thinking it's under the roof and they're not going to have any issues with water. That might be, I've run into situations where we've had to go and remove all the shafts because there's really no easy fix when water gets in there. And unfortunately, water finds its lowest point.
Yeah.
So once it does, it's you work from the bottom up.
Done. You're cooked.
Yeah.
Right?
So, the flexibility that the glass shaft wall liner provides, really in any region, you think about the Northeast and the tons of snow they get, Florida and the humid factors that they, I think feel like it's all year round down in Florida. And even in the Southeast here, right? We do a lot of humidity, and we don't have to worry about that with glass.
Preferred product, right?
It is.
Extended exposure.
Saves a lot of headaches on the back end.
Well, you mentioned it, that water, on these big commercial construction projects, you said it, that water finds its lowest point and it pools up down there in the bottom of that liner panel or that track, and that moisture wicks up into the core. And liner panels are unique because you can't just go in there and cut a little section out of the liner panel. You have to actually replace the liner panel, right?
Yeah, and if you think about how these shaft walls are built, they're built from the bottom up. So you've got a tract that's holding your shaft wall in place. And now what you've done is that bottom layer, it's almost like a game of Jenga. It's the weakest point of your shaft. So you've got to remove all the layers up top.
Start from
layer,
scratch.
layer of shaft wall tract, layer of shaft wall tract until you get to the bottom to replace all that. And that's time consuming. So when you think of like a schedule and what that's going to do to the contractor and the timing of the completion of the project, that's time consuming, time they weren't expecting to go back and fix. And then from a price tag standpoint, it's expensive. Not only do you have to replace the material, you've got to start the whole process all over again. So that's the extra labor they weren't expecting.
When we start talking about scheduling, the first thing that comes to my mind is top out. That's something contractors have to be aware of. I know that fits into this scheduling conversation. What is topping out?
Yeah, this is a construction term that really encompasses everybody. So you've got your mechanical contractor, your electrical contractor, your plumbing contractor. And really what topping out is you want to make sure you have the right product and you can work around it. So you have the product out there and these mechanical guys can come in and put their wires. The electrical guys can do the same thing, HVAC, plumbing. And you want to do that with a material that is that can really sustain the weather.
What product would you recommend for that top out application?
So our glass mat interior extreme is perfect for it. It really has the white facade, so it almost looks like an actual wall, but it's made of glass mat material, so that if there's weather involved, it doesn't matter. It's not going to impact it, and it's not really going to slow down your project. You can just keep going, and these other trades can come in behind you and make sure they're putting their electrical and plumbing and all that stuff in the right spot.
So Jessica, on that EXP interior extreme, is there a warranty with that product?
Yes, Chris, there's a 12-month exposure warranty. So meaning if it's exposed to the sun, it's not going to yellow. If it's exposed to water, snow, humidity, it's going to perform like nothing ever hit it.
Let's talk a little noise. And that's something that designers, architects, they have to think about that, not only, short term, but also long term. I know on the architectural front, schools, acoustics is such a hot topic. Maybe address some of the risks as it relates to noise and acoustics.
Yeah. So when I think about acoustics and when I think about noise, I really think about privacy. Thinking about everybody working from home, the multifamily building that you were talking about. Nobody wants to hear their neighbors, right? Yeah. So I really think about privacy. In two reasons, right? You don't want to hear what's happening next door.
Yeah.
And also you want to make sure that whatever you're talking about or whatever conversations are happening, they stay internal, right?
What product would you recommend? You're in front of a contractor or dealer. What product would you recommend to address those? How do you reduce sound? How do you reduce noise? What product would you recommend to a contractor or an architect if you're sitting in front of them?
So I would highly recommend our XP Soundbreak.
Okay.
It's our acoustical board that really is 2 layers of drywall, and in between it is sandwiched a viscoelastic polymer.
Special sauce, right?
The special goo. The special goo. So this special goo, what it does, it reduces any sound waves, any noise from going through the wall. And that's something that you can use really during the construction process to minimize the sound. Or we have a Soundbreak retrofit that you can use maybe after the fact. You realize your walls weren't as quiet as you wanted it to be. You could definitely use it then too.
Yeah, that's a great product. If I remember correctly, you don't have to tear down walls. You can put that product, it's a thin product. You can put it up over existing walls and still achieve that reduction in noise that you're looking for, right?
Correct.
Awesome product. What are some of the takeaways you want our audience members to have from today's conversation?
Really, the big takeaway here is invest up front, because it's really going to minimize your risk during the construction process and most likely after for a long-term commercial product. And I would really encourage everybody out there, if they don't know their local sales rep, reach out to them. And that goes for architects, contractors, distributors. Reach out to your local sales rep. There's nobody better in the industry, knows their technical knowledge. And if they don't know their local sales rep, reach out to our 1-800-NATIONAL team.
Great team.
They're also very knowledgeable and will help you with anything from UL assemblies down to, repairs if you really need to. Get their expert advice. And make sure to visit our special product landing page at goldbondbuilding.com/y-invest. where you can find additional resources.
All the resources we've mentioned today will be added to the show notes. All our podcasts can be found on your favorite platform or by visiting nationalgypsum.com/podcasts. If you have any questions or an idea for a topic, email us at podcast@nationalgypsum.com. National Gypsum Company is the exclusive service provider of reliable, high-performance building products manufactured by its affiliate companies and marketed under the Gold Bond, Proform, and Permabase brands. The National Gypsum name has been synonymous with high-quality, innovative products and exceptional customer service since 1925. The information provided in this podcast is for general information purposes only. For specific building or design questions, please consult with the 1-800-NATIONAL Construction Services team or your regional National Gypsum Construction Design Manager. Always use products in accordance to the manufacturer's recommendations.